From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good afternoon, Board, to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Madam Counsel, report on actions taken in closed session.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason and members of the board. This afternoon, your board heard several matters in closed session. Items number 47, 48, 49, and 54 were heard. No reportable action was taken on any of those items. With respect to item number 50, your board met in closed session to confer with council and staff regarding the matter of Barbara Ferguson versus County of Kern. This is Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, case number ADJ 215-4304. This is a workers' comp case filed by Barbara Ferguson for alleged injuries arising out of her employment with the County of Kern. She was employed as a pharmacy worker with KMC at the time of her injuries. By a unanimous 5-0 vote, the board approved settlement authority by way of a compromise and release for $75,000, authorized the auditor controller to issue warrants as requested by County Council, and authorized County Council to present the proposed settlement to the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board and execute all closing documents. With respect to item number 51, this morning, your board met in closed session to confer with council and staff on the matter of Peggy Turner versus County of Kern. This is Workers' Comp Appeals Board, case number ADJ 924-8517, also a workers' comp case. This one was filed by Ms. Turner for employment as a social service worker with the Kern County Aging and Adult Services Department at the time of her injuries. By unanimous 5-0 vote, your board approved settlement authority by way of a compromise and release for $75,000, authorized the auditor controller to issue warrants as requested by County Council, and also authorized County Council to present the proposed settlement to the Workers' Comp Appeals Board. And I want to make a correction to the record on item number 50, the Ferguson matter. That CNR, compromise and release, was approved for $125,000, not $75,000. With respect to item number 52, your board also met in closed session to confer with council and staff regarding the matter of Jose Valdez versus County of Kern. This is Workers' Comp Appeals Board, case number ADJ 877-4006. This was a case filed by the applicant, Mr. Valdez, for injuries arising out of his employment as a fire captain with the County of Kern at the time of his injuries. By unanimous 5-0 vote, your board approved settlement authority by way of 2 stipulations with requests for award carrying a total monetary value of $109,333.79. Further, your board authorized the auditor controller to issue warrants as requested by County Council, and authorized County Council to present the proposed settlement to the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board and to execute all necessary closing documents. With respect to item number 53, the Board of Supervisors met in closed session to confer with council regarding the case entitled County of Kern versus TCEF Inc. et al. This is Kern County Superior Court case number S1500 CV 282021 DRL. It is also Court of Appeal case number 5th District case number F070813. The Board of Supervisors, by a unanimous 5-0 vote, authorized County Council to file a petition for review requesting that the California Supreme Court hear the county's appeal of the recent decision of the 5th District Appellate Court in this case, which, if it were to become effective, would bring back into effect the 2009 ordinance under which medical marijuana dispensaries were to be treated in the same manner as pharmacies. The effect of filing a petition for review with the California Supreme Court will be to stay or freeze the effect of the decision of the 5th Appellate District Court of Appeal in this case. Until the decision of the Court of Appeal in this matter becomes effective, the present legal situation will continue, which is that medical marijuana dispensaries are not permitted in any zone district within the unincorporated portion of the County of Kern. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam Counsel. We'll begin with the consent agenda. All items listed with a CA or C above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. The C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the board or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anybody, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be reconsidered in its listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So going through the consent agenda, we'll start on page 3 under hearings, planning and community development department, 5 through 7, and 8 through 11, which is in the 8 through 10, number 11 in the Public Works Department, continuing on through 14, 15 in Operations and Maintenance. County Admin is going to be 16 through 20. General Services Division, 21 and 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 32. Human Resources Divisions, 33 and 34. Matters for executive approval would be 36 through 40. Does any member of the public wish to pull any of these items off the consent agenda? Now is the time. Could you please come forward and let me know what you want to do? Just the item number at the present time. We'll talk about it in a minute.
32.
You'd like to pull 32 from the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll pull 32, and we'll call you up once you turn to go forward. Anybody else in the public wishing to pull any item off the consent agenda? Okay, then I'm going to look, anybody on the board like to pull anything off the consent agenda? If not, I would like to get a vote on the consent agenda, adjourn as the Board of Supervisors, and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Cast your votes. We are now sitting as
Motion is approved, all ayes.
We're now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority, and we have a consent agenda item number 1. Anybody in the public would like to pull item 1 off the Kern Sanitation Authority agenda? Seeing none, bring it back to the board, looking for a vote on the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes. Okay,
Please reconfirm your vote, Supervisor Perez.
she's having too much fun today.
Thank you. The vote is all ayes.
Thank you. Brings us to public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any issue or matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask for question or clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct staff to place the matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Anybody wishing to make a public presentation? Now's the time. Seeing none, we'll close public presentation and board member announcements. Seeing none, I have a couple for board member announcements. First one is to remind everybody that April 16th, this Saturday, is our birthday bash going on at the Kern County Museum. It's going to be from 2 o'clock till 8 o'clock, 3801 Chester Ave. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do, a lot of activities. We're bringing all things from all corners of our Kern County together, so you can have, and your family can have a fun day. I encourage you all to attend. It really will be a good time. We're going to have fireworks, we're going to have food, live entertainment. Mike Maggott's going to sing a song for us. We're going to have tickets. We have tickets for $10. It's going to cost. The family pack is $25. Children 5 and under are free. So I encourage all of you to consider coming to our Kern County Museum to celebrate our 150th year birthday bash, April 16th, this Saturday, from 2 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the evening. Second board member announcement is next Tuesday. Our board meeting is going to be held up in Havilah. Next Tuesday is our birthday, and we're going to be having this meeting here. Instead of having it here, we're going to be doing up in Havilah, up in the KIV, which happens to be our original county seat. So it's going to be a Board of Supervisors meeting. It's going to be in Havilah. It's going to be celebrating 150 years. It's going to be in a tent. There's going to be a picnic afterwards, so we're actually going to do some business. We're going to have some fun with it, and then we're going to conclude, and we're going to have a picnic. $10 for all you can eat for the picnic. We're going to be doing, because parking is so restricted up there, what we need to do is have everybody come to certain pickup points in Lake Isabella, where we'll have a shuttle that brings everybody up from the senior center and other places up by Tank Park, Kissick Field, where you can park your car and then get in the shuttle and drive on up with us. Shuttles will begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. The meeting is going to be at 11 o'clock, so there'll be time to go up there and enjoy Havilah, listen to us, get through a meeting fairly quickly. Should be a lot of fun, including introducing a new county song. I'm not going to say who's going to sing that one. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. I encourage you all, if you got something, you want to take a little part of history, I think it'd be a blast. In the back of the room, there are these things, which are little things that will tell you about the parking situation, give you maps on how to get to where to go, all that stuff. So I encourage all of you to come. Should be a good time. Thirdly, I'm proud to announce that a member of our county has been elected to the California State University Board of Trustees, which is a big deal, and that's John Nylon. I'd like to thank him for taking this on, and I'd like to ask John for a minute to explain to us just exactly what a Board of Trustee is and what you're going to be doing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the term starts July, and I will serve along with 24 other members. Most of them are appointed by the governor's office and then confirmed by the Senate. There are the governor, the lieutenant governor, the leadership of the Assembly and the Senate, and the leadership of the Education Division, as well as one alumni representative, and I was elected by a group of my peers to be the trustee. We do much as the Board of Supervisors does for the County of Kern, the trustees do for the entire 23 campus system, including appointing the president, appointing the chancellors, approving the budget, and all major policy and procedure issues.
Outstanding, John. Thank you very much for contributing and continuing on the legacy for Kern County and representing us well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along, any other, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I meant to mention it earlier, but our very own sheriff, Donnie Youngblood, was elected and voted in last week, sworn in by our own governor to become the head of the State Sheriff's Association. And so he is now the head of California State Sheriff's Association. I meant to mention it this morning, but John Nylon got all the glory, and there's nothing wrong with that. So congrats to you, and hats off, of course, to our sheriff.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Outstanding. Anybody else? Okay, that'll get us to item number 4. Ms. Oviatt.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. I'm here today with Craig Murphy and Ross Furman in the front. Thank you. I'm here today with Craig Murphy, and Division Chief Ross Furman, Staff Planner, to bring you a major project in Eastern Kern. This is the Willow Springs Solar Project by Willow Springs Solar LLC, a limited liability company of First Solar. The project was originally scheduled to be considered by your board, considered by your board on March 15th, but was continued today to allow time for staff to address all comments that have been received and prepare the final CEQA documents and allow the Planning Commission to consider the project. The actions before your board today include a specific plan amendment, a change in zone classification, and conditional use permit. Conditional use permit would authorize the construction and operation of a 150-megawatt solar photovoltaic facility with 2.3 million panels, including an operations and maintenance building located near 110th Street and Holiday. This is in the Antelope Valley. It's 8 miles west of the community of Rosamond in an area called Willow Springs. The southern boundary borders the Kern-LA County line. Avenue A is the LA County-Kern line. The site itself is 1,402 acres. It's made up of 9 parcels. It's bounded by Holiday Avenue to the north. The south is Avenue A, to the west by 120th Street, and the east by 100th Street. It's currently vacant with a mix of desert vegetation. It was farmed from 2005 through 2010, specifically growing a variety of row crops. There's no Williamson Act contract, and there's no farming that's been conducted since 2010. As you can see by the lines, the LA Department of Water and Power easement traverses this property, as well as the Southern California Edison easement. Surrounding land uses are undeveloped lands, solar projects, and scattered residential dwellings. Most of the dwelling units are on the eastern boundary of the project site across from 100th Street. As you can note from this graphic, this project site is an area where similar projects have been considered, approved, and constructed primarily for solar photovoltaic. A full and detailed description of the project is included in the staff report, as well as your final environmental impact report. As required by state law, a comprehensive environmental impact report was prepared for this project in compliance with CEQA guidelines. In this case, it included the recirculation of portions of the document on 2 separate occasions. Your board has received all the documents at the time of public release, starting with the notice of preparation, through the 3 circulations of the EIR to a final response of comments. The original notice of preparation was circulated in 2010. However, First Solar put the project on hold as they moved through the processing for other projects. Therefore, it was not until February of 2015 that staff released the first draft EIR for a 45-day circulation period. There were 12 written comments that were received, and the response to comments is identified as Chapter 7 on the graphic. However, prior to consideration by the Planning Commission, staff received additional correspondence from Adams and Broadwell, Joseph and Cardoza, representing the Kern County Citizens for Responsible Solar and the California Unions for Reliable Energy, or CURE. As a result of that correspondence, and consistent with the purposes of CEQA, it was staff's determination that various sections of the environmental impact report needed to be modified, and that triggered a recirculation of portions of the document. In September, staff released the partially recirculated draft EIR for another 45-day public review period. 7 chapters of the draft EIR were modified. This is permitted by CEQA and is intended to facilitate public comments. So only those portions that actually change in the EIR are circulated so that the public can provide additional comments on the change portions. After that review, it was determined that, again, with 9 written comments, that agricultural resources was an issue that needed to be further explored, and staff then prepared another draft EIR, and the second recirculated draft EIR focusing on agricultural resources was circulated. As required by CEQA, all of these comments on all 3 of these draft EIRs are located in Chapter 7.5, which has been provided to you in response to comments. Staff has also, to facilitate the public review, consolidated all of the changes that have been made to the draft EIR into one final EIR. In addition, Adams and Broadwell, Joseph and Cardoza, Southern Sierra Partnership submitted comments the day of the Planning Commission. However, those brought up no new information and were included in the record for your comprehensive responses, along with a letter from the East Kern Air District, which took issue with the requested air modeling changes requested by Adams and Broadwell. As a state expert on air, staff finalized the project with the recommended modeling from the East Kern Air District. The final consolidated EIR is comprised of chapters 1 through 10 and appendices A through K1. It contains 49 mitigation measures. Significant and unavoidable project-level impacts were found to aesthetics, agriculture, the conversion of 430 acres of designated farmland, temporary air quality impacts, and temporary noise impacts. There are cumulative, significant, and unavoidable impacts to aesthetics, agriculture, air quality during construction, biological resources, noise during constructions. A full record of these comments and responses have been provided at the Planning Commission hearing on March 20th, 2016, are included in the staff report, and the final EIR has been provided to your board today. It is staff's determination that although this is a long and comprehensive CEQA process, we have addressed all of the environmental concerns carefully and thoughtfully, and that have been brought up during the public comment period. They have been fully addressed in the final EIR that is brought before your board today. there are sufficient findings and evidence in the record that would allow you to move forward with consideration of the project today. As required by CEQA, written findings and explanations under Section 15091 and Section 15093 Statement of Overriding Considerations have been provided. Implementation of the project would result in a number of public benefits. The generation of 150 megawatts of renewable energy, which powers 41,000 homes per year, 450 peak construction jobs with a 50% goal for local hire, 16 permanent jobs, $1.6 million in sales tax that will go to the county, and an estimated $250,000 plus in property taxes, with the operations and maintenance building being subject to reassessment. Adjacent neighbors did have concerns and submitted comments on the EIR through the process, but those concerns appear to have been addressed as they did not speak at the Planning Commission or provide additional comments. The primary opposition to this project has been from law firms representing labor unions who have requested First Solar sign a project labor agreement. First Solar indicates they have been in negotiation throughout the project processing but have not come to an agreement. As you know, your board has imposed a 50% local hire goal on all renewable energy projects. That condition does not require a project labor agreement. It requires that the contractor provide evidence that they have conducted a local job fair, contacted local work training programs, and facilitated local hiring to the goal of 50%. Our solar and wind projects have ranged from 70 to 90% local hire. Given the fully qualified workforce created over the last 7 years from the number of solar training programs and solar projects, staff believes that the condition can be met outside union affiliation. The project was considered by the Planning Commission on March 10th or March 20th? March 10th, apologize, March 10th. In total, 7 individuals provided testimony, 5 individuals in favor and 2 individuals opposed due to concerns related to local hire, and a representative from Adams, Broadwell, Joseph, and Condoza. After consideration, the Planning Commission is recommending unanimously approval of the project to your board. The project is consistent with policies of the general plan and located adjacent to similar uses. The project proponent has signed an MOU stating if this site was ever sold to an entity exempt from local zoning regulations or taxes, that the new owner would still be would be required to adhere to the zoning requirements. A complete, full, and comprehensive EIR has been prepared, including 49 mitigation measures and an exhaustive public comment process. The project is located in proximity to available commercial transmission and has resolved any and all issues regarding public access to the project. Since the Planning Commission hearing, we've received a number of letters which we have provided to your board, including a full addendum. Today we received additional comments from Adams, Broadwell, Joseph, and Cardoza, 31 pages of comments. We have provided our response. We see no new information in what has been provided, but I would note that in 2 instances they have provided information, one from the South Coast Air Quality Air District, which is contrary to the jurisdiction of the East Kern Air District, and so as the expert in this area, we are standing behind the modeling and the letter that has been submitted to your board on the East Kern Air District response. And second, they have provided information from another solar project. As a reminder, CEQA is a site-specific and this project has unique characteristics that have been looked at in the EIR, and we have provided responses. In addition, comments have been provided to your board from a variety of entities taking issue with the opposition from the unions and using environmental issues to leverage to obtain union contracts. The full record of this project has been provided today. We do believe that concerns have been addressed by imposing the appropriate mitigation measures. We believe there are no substantive issues that have been raised with these last-minute submittals that your board would need to address at this time. The recommendation remains as it's been presented to your board, and staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Anyone in the public? have a comment, a general comment? Yeah.
If I may, Chairman Gleason, could we have the applicant make a presentation first?
Yeah, okay. So what we'll do is, before we open the public hearing, we'll have the applicant speak, and then we'll open the public hearing. And so the applicant wishes to make comment. Please come down. Would you please state your name, sir, and go for it?
Sure. My name is Jack Pigott, P-I-G-O-T-T. I'm Director of Project Development for First Solar and the project developer for the Willow Springs project. Chairman Gleason and members of the board, thank you for reviewing our project today. And I'd like to thank planning staff for their excellent and extensive work on this project. It's been going on for quite a while. The next slide, please. So just a little background on First Solar. We are a U.S. company. We're publicly traded. We've been in business since 1999. And we have installed more utility-scale solar in California and the U.S. than any other company. We have over 10 gigawatts of modules installed throughout the world. The slide says 2 gigawatts installed and serving California. It's actually closer to 4 now. And we're also vertically integrated. We manufacture our own modules. Those are manufactured in Ohio and Malaysia. We have our own construction group that builds projects, our own development group that sources and brings projects through permitting like this one. We also sell our modules to other projects that other parties develop. And we have an operating group. So for a number of the projects in the Antelope Valley, we are the project operator, and we're here for the long term. We also have a strong balance sheet, and many of our projects that we construct, we do on our balance sheet without needing construction financing. So we're now on the next slide, and these are, this shows the projects in California that are either in operation, under construction, or development, 4 gigawatts. And just for the record, First Solar is not an anti-union company. Almost all of these projects that you see on the slide here have been built with IBEW labor and many with other trades as well. We generally build our projects with a mix, some union labor and some merit shop that we either hire ourselves or go through local contractors. Next slide, please. This shows projects that we've built either in Kern County or in the Antelope Valley. Two of them are in LA County, which I've also included because they're large projects. But it shows the typical percentage of local hires. And it's typically run between 60 and 70% on all of our jobs. In the case of the two big projects in LA County, a lot of those workers came from Lancaster and Palmdale. In the case of this project and other projects that we have in Kern County, they'll come from Kern County and from Bakersfield. Next slide, please. The Willow Springs project has many benefits. It will provide enough power for 41,000 homes. It's in an area where the land is previously disturbed. Will create 450 peak construction jobs, approximately 16 permanent jobs. And also, this is an area where the water rights have been adjudicated, and so while some of the land was previously farmed, the water is now, the water that's available to the site is reduced substantially, and it's also, in some cases, no longer available to the site, but being used for other purposes. Next slide, please. The project is well sited. It's adjacent to other solar projects. It's near the Roseman project that you approved in October of 2014. In fact, it's a quarter of a mile away from it. It's in an area with available transmission and compatible with adjacent land uses. And that's it for my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Pickett. We may have some, but I don't think we'll get to you just yet. If you grab a seat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to open the public hearing, and we're going to start it off by going to Mojave. I know Mr. Rush is up there, and he's got some people who would like to comment. Mr. Rush? Hold on, Mr. Rush. Can you hear me? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Good. We're at the Veterans Building here in Mojave. We have 5 people in favor of the project, and one of them would like to speak to you.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Melissa Majeski, M-A-J-E-S-K-Y. I am a 33-year resident of the Antelope Valley, and I am in favor of this project.
Thank you, Ms. Majeski. Is there any more to speak up there?
That's it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Appreciate it. Bring it back to here. Anybody here would like to comment on this project? Now's the time.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and council members. My name is Tom Enslow. I'm here today on behalf of the Kern County Citizens for Responsible Solar. Kern County Citizens is an unincorporated association of local residents, including residents from Rosamond, Mojave, and Tehachapi, and also other groups, including the California Unions for Reliable Energy. I'm here today in opposition to approval of the Willow Springs Solar Project on the grounds that the EIR for the project fails to comply with the requirements of CEQA. We all recognize that these are land-intensive projects and they're not impact-free. They're converting agricultural lands and habitat for special status species at alarming rates throughout the state, but particularly in this region. And due to the unprecedented numbers and scope of these projects, it's really essential that the EIRs disclose all the impacts and identify all the feasible mitigation for these projects. And without full disclosure of a particular project's impacts, the county cannot make an informed decision as to whether or not to issue a statement of overriding considerations where there are impacts that will not be mitigated below a level of significance. Here, we've had a process where the applicants have resisted disclosing and mitigating the project's impacts from the beginning. You know, the initial EIR, the applicants failed to reveal the existence of a phase 1 report that found contamination on the site. The air quality analysis initially relied on modeling from a different project. Incorrect information was provided regarding the viability of farming, and information regarding special status species was not correctly disclosed. And as a result of this, as staff has mentioned, there's been multiple revisions to the EIR, and frankly, we commend staff for their patience through this process. Unfortunately, the EIR you have before you today still remains inadequate. It fails to disclose significant dust emissions from project construction and fails to disclose or adequately mitigate impacts for numerous special status species. For example, The California Department of Fish and Wildlife recommends mitigating loss of Swainson's hawk habitat by providing compensatory mitigation in Antelope Valley at a 2-to-1 ratio, but the EIR proposes a 1-to-1 ratio and allows the mitigation to be in the Central Valley, which will have no impact on the affected species of Swainson hawk. And so there's no substantial evidence to support the findings in the EIR that this mitigation would reduce the direct impacts below level of significance. The EIR also improperly relies on mitigation, the Swainson hawk mitigation for loss of habitat to also mitigate impacts from other species, including the prairie falcon, northern harrier, Cooper's hawk, Ferungius hawk, and loggerhead shrike. This assumption also lacks substantial evidence because the habitat for Swainson hawk isn't necessarily the same as the habitat for these other species. And without additional conditions on what sort of compensatory habitat is required, again, there's no substantial evidence to support the findings here. The numerous other inadequacies in this EIR that we set forth in our written comments, the findings that there wouldn't be a Tehachapi pocket mouse potentially on the project site, the EIR claims that there hasn't been a finding of this mouse in Kern County since 1998, yet the county's own biological report for a nearby solar project in 2011 actually trapped and found this mouse just 5 miles from this project. So there's a whole slew of special study species that the EIR improperly says won't be found on the project, doesn't provide mitigation, and that needs to be looked at, and it needs to be go back for recirculation to actually show that they've studied and surveyed for these particular species and that mitigation has been imposed that will address those impacts. And with that, I think my comments are done. We thank you for your time, and we urge you to send this back for more study. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to comment? John.
Chairman Gleason, members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is John Spalding, S-P-A-U-L-D-I-N-G, and I am here representing the Kern and Mono Counties Building and Construction Trades Council. The project before you by First Solar has been vetted by the Planning Commission and recommended for your approval. First, this project is not slated to even be built until 2018. At this point, First Solar may very well be the developer, they may be the EPC contractor, or they may sell it. They are currently working on a contract here in our area. They're doing a project as the EPC contractor, and they are utilizing the workforces of an Arizona contractor. This is an opportunity for you to now raise the recommended local hire provision to 70 or 75%. This is the level of local hire that we are achieving on projects that a commitment was made up front. Your planning director has been very clear that this is a level of local hire that she has seen. We started early on with the wind and solar industry that our local hire force was shut out of the recommended renewable energy jobs. Planning director brought this information to you, and with your foresight, you began suggesting 25%. And then you upped it to 50%, which has produced a lot of jobs for local hire. Now is the time for that to be increased, especially with the downturn in our economy, and give our local workforce an opportunity to compete for these jobs and earn a respectable wage with benefits and spend their wages here in Kern County, not just in restaurants, motels, or trailer parks, but on homes, education, and vehicles that are smogged to operate in California. Note, Lancaster and Palmdale are in LA County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Cheryl Scott, representing Kern Economic Development Corporation. As you have heard from us many times over the years, when a new project is slated or proposing to come into Kern County, there are three things we really consider. That's capital investment, job creation, and wage income. This is not First Solar's first project in Kern County. We already know they can deliver. Considering our current unemployment rate, thanks in part to our decline in oil prices, the benefit seems clear. 450 construction jobs can help bridge the jobs gap caused by that drop in oil prices. The 16 permanent jobs would kind of be icing on the cake, but the benefit of that speaks for itself as well. Kern EDC supports this project, and we encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. Russell Johnson, Common Sense Consulting, on behalf of the Associated Builders and Contractors. ABC runs a workforce development training center in Kern County, of which in 2014 alone, over 15,000 people received training or attended one of our programs at ABC. In 2015, that number was reduced to 9,000. You will see a lot of that was as a result of the downturn in the oil and gas industry. As those energy jobs were lost, our local economy has suffered. With 450 construction jobs available with this project, it would be a great way to take our displaced energy workers and put them to work working on this energy project in eastern Kern County. We urge your support of this project. Our contract members are eagerly looking at competing for work on solar projects, and it makes it difficult when project labor agreements are used to hold up projects. So with that, we urge your approval of this project and ask that you help put local skilled craft professionals back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisors, my name is Jack Jansen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sturgeon Services International here in Bakersfield. We're an open shop contractor. 18 months ago, we had about 1,400 employees. We're now down to 700 with about 100 on the bench. Obviously, a project like this is a wonderful place for hopefully us to participate in and get some of these people back to work. We would definitely encourage your approving this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jansen.
Good afternoon, Chairman, council members. My name is Michael Spray, S-P-R-A-Y. I'm the business manager for CLP Skill Staffing, a True Blue company. True Blue and CLP with Labor Ready, we specialize in the skill trades. That'll be your carpenters, your electricians, both journeymen and apprentice equipment operators. Our main goal of our company is always get back into the community we live. My office and Labor Ready's office here in Kern County alone is connected with 500 plus employees by sitting resumes, just coming in for interviews. A lot of them are from the oil and gas industry. With these brands, we can support the local market with local labor by working with local companies for their needs. With CLP and True Blue, with our brands Labor Ready here in Kern County, it makes CLP and True Blue one Forbes top 100 trustworthy companies in the U.S. I urge you to give your support for this project, and let's put local people back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spray.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, Supervisors. Thank you for an opportunity to speak. My name is Jim Elrod, J-I-M-E-L-R-O-D. I'm the business manager for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I believe I'm that union guy that she referred to that's twisting somebody's arm. I don't know if that should make me feel sad or good, but actually what I'd like to do is take a moment. I'm not down here to throw First Solar under the bus, make them look like they're an evil contractor that's out to get us, because they're not. We've done a lot of projects with them. They're a very good contractor. They have an excellent safety program that they have on their projects. And my members that work on these projects, I feel comfortable at the end of the day, they're all going to get to go home to their families. But what I would like to do is take a moment of what we have done for the past 3.5 years because of the opportunities that we've had partnering with not only First Solar, 8 Minute Energy, Recurrent, Sun Power, Sun Edison, through project labor agreements. Right now, presently, as we speak today, working on solar projects in Kern County, we have 1,180 people. Out of that 1,880, 832 are Kern County residents. That's a 71%. Eastern Kern County residents are at 234. Given to the clerk yesterday was 3 letters that had been sent to us, and I hope you all got a chance to see them. If not, 2 of them are recommendations from local agencies that we have been working with, and one of them is from the mayor of California City. I believe that we have done everything that we've promised to do as I've come up here in the past and spoke to you, urging you to pass projects. And I'm a lifelong resident of Kern County. I'm 57 years old. I live in District 3. Mike Maggart is my supervisor. I have a huge vested interest in this. And the only thing that we're getting out of these projects, because all the electricity is going down south, the only thing we're getting is jobs. And out of that, what we have been able to do, and again, this is just some information, in 2011, our 5-year electrical apprenticeship program, which is a California state indentured apprenticeship program, it's 5 years long, it's not easy. We had 63 apprentices in our 5-year apprenticeship program. 2012, it went up to 71. 2013 is when the solar work started to come and giving us opportunities. It went up to 84. 2014, it went to 94. 2015, it was 107. This year in 2016, we're at 133. And we have interviews next Tuesday, and we'll be starting a new class in June. Out of that 133, we have 21 indentured apprentices that were former panel installers. These are the individuals that we go out and do job fairs in most every one of your districts that we've contacted you, and we've held job fairs, get applications, we put these individuals to work. These are Kern County residents who live within a 25-mile range of these projects. We do a lot of work. We spend an enormous amount of time trying to gather these people, place them, because a lot of them don't make a lot of money. They're underemployed, unemployed. We try to place them on these projects, give them opportunities to take that next step, to get their high school diplomas or their GEDs, get the algebra requirement, and in the meantime, we're supplying them with an opportunity to work and gain some experience. But like I said, 21 of those that are in our apprenticeship program out of the 133 were former panel installers. We also have a classification called an unindentured apprentice. Those are individuals who do have the qualifications of the high school diploma or GED and the year of high school algebra with a C or better that can go out, but they're not indentured with the state of California. Out of that, 43 of those individuals are now placed in our indentured apprenticeship program. So just south of 50% of our 133 apprentices all started out in the solar fields, and it was because of you guys approving these projects and giving us opportunities to work on them. I think we've all seen in the past all the promises that are given to us, and it was even mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting that the local hire mandate cannot be enforced. And we've seen it out on the wind projects with Blattner. They came in front of the board, they promised that they would do job fairs, they promised they would reach out in the communities, and they did all that. Unfortunately, they hired very few people. And their answer was they were unqualified. They couldn't run a 100-ton crane. They didn't have state certification. They had multiple of excuses. Fact be known, any contractor that bids a job is bidding it to make a profit. So when you're from out of the area, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, you are going to bring your known workforce with you. That's what you're going to do because you know what you have to work with and you know how to work these jobs. What you have with us is that you have the ability that we control the manpower hire. So whether the contractor's from Kern County or they're from New York City, when they come here and they work in this area to do electrical work, their manpower comes through us. And then everything I just mentioned, all the job fairs, all the apprentices that we're adding to the program, everything that we're doing is to help the residents of Kern County. It costs us $36,000 to train an apprentice through a 5-year program. Doesn't cost the apprentice a dime. So we are helping develop a skilled craftsman that will only contribute back to this community. So if we don't reach out and make sure somehow that we can't enforce this local hire mandate, there has to be a method to verify to make sure that Kern County residents are getting first opportunities so that they can create a career for the future. Otherwise, it's going to be like the windmills. We have a project right now on the west side of the town. It's called a SCIC project, which is an acronym for, unfortunately, I don't remember what it is right now, but they're using a temp agency to hire. Most of the people are not from Kern County. They're from somewhere down south, Orange County, San Diego. You could drive out there and check. So I would urge you, whatever project's being built in Kern County, somehow or another you hold these people accountable. So again, I'm not here to say First Solar is a terrible company. I'm against solar. I'm not smart enough to really know a whole lot about the environment other than I don't want to choke to death. So I need it to be as clean as possible. But I would urge you, please do what you've done in the past and force this point. Make sure, I know Mr. Scrivener has checked on projects in his area before because I've got calls from SunPower. Very, very concerned. The numbers that Mr. Piggott mentioned, that he's been hitting 70% on those, I hate to take credit for it, but I'm taking credit for it. It's because of what it is that we've done. They're not hiring anybody. They're subbing these projects out. And the contractors don't really care about local hire. They care about making money. So this is the only opportunity that you guys have to dig in, hold tight, and help Kern County residents with the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elrod. Any other public comments? I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for comment and consideration. And Ms. Oviatt, I think you want to make some comments.
Thank you, Chairman Gleason and members of the board. So I would like to address the biological issues that were raised. First of all of the species that the commenter noted are not protected. They're not threatened. They're not endangered. They may be special status species. We did review them. We did do biological surveys for them. But the level of protection that a listed species is required to mitigate is different from the special status species, and we believe we've met that standard. We have no comments in the record from the Federal Fish and Wildlife or the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to the contrary. In addition, an inaccuracy was presented to your board. The ratio of 1-to-1 for Swenson hawk and ag mitigation, the EIR does not make the case that that reduces anything to a level of less than significant, and we're not required to do that. We are still asking your board to do an override for biological considerations, and given the adjudicated water supply in the Antelope Valley, a requirement that ag land be mitigated only in that area, or only in, remembering that that adjudication covers both Kern County and LA County, would make that mitigation measure very difficult and infeasible. The intention here, as we have in all of our projects, is to mitigate the loss of prime farmland. And since Swenson's hawks use that farmland for foraging and nesting, to also require that that farmland be compatible. We believe that our mitigation measures are adequate. We continue to believe that the CEQA process that we have presented, the opposition's opinion that the applicant was resistant is nowhere provided in the record. I believe that is speculation. We have gone through a robust, complicated CEQA process on a solar project, and we believe that we have brought before your board a comprehensive and fully mitigated project. In regards to the condition that requires 50% local hire, as a reminder, your board has been on the forefront of this for the last 8 years. You cannot require local hire. It is not, in California, it is very difficult to defend against the fact that you're not going to let people who don't live here work here. Therefore, your board has taken the position that you want evidence provided in this condition that the contractor has taken all steps. We have increased, we require that they provide us evidence of a local job fair. We require evidence that they've contacted our programs. Prior to this condition, we had a disconnect between the hiring of the people who were hiring at our local training programs, ETR, our community colleges. There was a gap that we were training the people, but they didn't even know where the jobs were. And a company that comes forward needs to move forward, hire people, and get to work. So this condition has created that connection. If anything, your board should take credit for the fact that the local unions have ramped up their apprenticeship programs. It was based on your condition that the apprenticeship programs expanded and that our local unions took seriously the local hire provision. In regards to the wind project, we have brought this before your board before. In the early days of this project, wind projects particularly because of the requirements for 500-foot towers, and we did investigate why they were not hired and discovered that they were not passing their drug test. And although it is not the planning department's responsibility, I reached out to local hiring training programs and the people who are in charge of these things and pointed out that if the people who have been trained cannot pass drug tests, they will not get hired, no matter what condition we place. So we believe that that wind project and those wind project at the very beginning, we have overcome that. We have competent training programs. We do appreciate, the planning department specifically does appreciate the partnership that we've had with the local unions and local representatives in local hire. However, when it comes right down to it, it is your board's direction that this be encouraged. We are holding them to account through job fairs, through making sure they are contacting, and through also communicating with the training programs to make sure they understand what is in the pipeline, what are the needs, and what kind of feedback we're getting on the skills that are being provided. We are available for any questions you may have on any of the other issues that were raised, and the recommendation, I'm prepared with a recommendation at your request.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. It's extraordinary that we in Kern County are even having this conversation because our big brother to the north, Fresno, I know, does not have this conversation. They do not have the encouragement, and they do not ask the local community to think seriously and develop the partnerships that will really give our local families, in particular, given our economic plight, really a cutting edge in the opportunity to compete. And so hats off, Director Oviatt, to you, to the many, many entities in this room that help make that happen, and really hats off to First Solar for your long history of local hire. I know the folks that spoke today from IBEW and others have been very instrumental in meeting that in my world, in the 5th District, and in my former life as a deputy public defender. It is so important for me to be able to refer over former clients of mine, folks that we've heard from today at Teen Challenge that we know 100% of their guys that they have referred over to IBEW have been hired. That partnership has developed because of our leadership out of the planning department, the willing private contractors that have stepped up and developed those relationships. And for that, I am incredibly grateful. And I am optimistic that the future will hold the same kind of legacy. This issue came to the forefront when our former Senator Michael Rubio was chairing the Senate Select Committee on Economic Development and the state permitting process. And the various issues came forward involving our workforce quality challenges as well as local hire practices and culture. And we discovered through that process that we had less than 25% local hire on most of the jobs present. A lot of that was issues with drug tests, work patterns, soft skills, a whole host of issues that we know are prevalent in a place that has the kind of concentration of poverty and educational challenges that we have in Kern County. So it is remarkable to me that we see a history presented today of excellent local hire. I have every faith that that's going to continue and that the partnerships will be worked out to continue that in that vein. And I was amazed to meet with 8 Minute Energy 2 weeks ago, who has a 90% local hire on their Springbok projects, which to me is the most fundamental and important investment that anybody can ever make into the families and lives in Kern County, is giving people real economic opportunity at upward mobility and making the kind of relationships that I know with 8 Minute Energy is very strong with the folks that we heard from today. And I'm so grateful that we have gone from less than 25% local hire to 90% on this project, and they've managed to work through the challenges with drug testing, with workplace challenges culturally and otherwise, and it is an extraordinary accomplishment of our planning department, of our private sector developers, and of course, the folks who spoke today from IBEW and the trades along the way, as well as other folks we know who spoke today as well. My personal experience has been that with the folks who spoke today, so I am very grateful for that. I am curious to hear what our planning director thinks about improving the local hire provision. I know that we cannot force that, and you indicated that earlier, but clearly the direction of this board has changed local hire numbers here from less than 25% to upwards of 70, 75, 90%, simply by establishing a culture that we know does not exist in a place like Fresno, for example, and I know many people there would love to see it. So if I could get your thoughts, Director, on that issue, and how you see us effectively moving forward to ensure that we are being intelligent about placing local families and giving them an advantage, in particular in light of our economic plight. Through the chair, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank
Please.
you.
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, it is certainly within your board's, even at the beginning, the 25% was somewhat arbitrary. So I believe it is within your board's authority to ask that we change the condition. It is not a mitigation measure and therefore has no impact on the environmental impact report. So I believe that 70% local hire is achievable, but may not be achievable by all projects. It really is a function of the particular type of project, whether it's a wind repower or a solar project, and location, time of year. There are just a lot of issues in regards to what we call local hire, which is hiring within Kern County or in the eastern Kern area, hiring within that. Sometimes we do consider local hire Kern County is what I'm trying to get at. Even in eastern Kern, if you come from Bakersfield, we consider you local hire. I've actually had people who have taken issue with that and believe that it should be more geographically specific. But with a clarification from your board that local hire for you means within Kern County, any place in Kern County, even if they're traveling, I believe that we could achieve 70%.
Thank you, Director Oviatt. And again, hats off for what you've done to help local families. I'd be curious to hear from my colleagues, but excited and hopeful that we continue our path of unprecedented local hire.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project is in the 2nd District, and so I know the area very well. I think this is a well-sited project specifically because it's adjacent to existing solar. It's a low-populated area. Because of the adjudication that occurred with the water situation in the Antelope Valley, row crops are not going to be a possibility anymore for much of the land that's out there. And so solar presents an opportunity for property owners to monetize that investment and see a return on their investment of property taxes, and also have a good use for the land that's out there. As I said, that's no longer a viable farming operation. 150 megawatts of clean renewable energy is obviously a plus for the state. The 450 plus local jobs that are going to be on the site, and as we've seen, most of these are going to be local jobs, is definitely a benefit. $1.6 million in sales tax, and then the property tax of around $250,000. This project, I went through that list of benefits because this project is similar to many other projects that this board has approved in Eastern Kern. And Kern Economic Development Corporation, they're always here in support of these projects that have gone through a rigorous environmental review, that are a good use of the property, that are going to provide local benefits. But usually our local unions are also on the side of support as well. And so the question is, what's different in this case? And unfortunately, why I think that I have an attorney that's representing labor unions here to oppose the project on environmental grounds is because there is no project labor agreement in place for this particular project. And I think that's disappointing. To me, that sounds like greenmail, and I don't like to see it in Kern County. If our project applicants have a agreement with organized labor, then that's a business decision that they make, good for them. If they don't, that's also a business decision, and it's not for me to sit up here and try and sort out whether or not we have unionized labor or we have non-unionized labor. I think that we've done a wonderful job in achieving a high local hire rate, but I think that can be done whether it's a unionized workforce or a non-unionized workforce or a combination of the two. And both of those, all of those options are open and available for this project applicant. As far as increasing the local hire, I heard it called a mandate, but it really isn't. This is us encouraging that local hire is pursued by our projects and the contractors that they hire. And we could set it at 100%. And it still is going to be a function of whether or not the labor is available to the project applicants. And so I think that 50% is reasonable. Yes, we could set it at 70. I think it would be more symbolism than substance if we did so. I think what's important is that we are requiring that these projects demonstrate to us that they've made an effort to hire locally with the job fairs, talking with our ETR, our Bakersfield College, et cetera. Those are the avenues that I think are going to help us to ensure that our labor force on these projects is at least a majority local, but in most cases we're seeing between 60 and 90%, and so that everyone should be applauded for that. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve this project. I would like Ms. Oviatt to give us a recommendation read into the record, and then I'm prepared to make a motion. I see that at least one other supervisor would like to make comments, and so I can defer that motion until we hear those comments. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Couch. Oh, go ahead with the motion.
Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair, the recommendation is to certify the environmental impact report, adopt the section 15091 findings and section 15093 statement of overriding considerations, adopt the mitigation measure monitoring program, adopt resolutions and enact ordinance approving specific plan amendment as requested, approve the zone changes requested, approve the conditional use permit subject to conditions, approve the memorandum of understanding agreement, and authorize the chairman to sign.
So moved.
Supervisor Couch.
I just want to say I appreciate your comments, and I concur, and I second your motion.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Great. That brings us to item 31, proposed approval of mid-year capital asset acquisition of a new telecommunications equipment in an amount not to exceed $6,365. Mr. Frapwell.
Thank you, Ms. Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The item before you is seeking your authorization for a mid-year acquisition of mid-year fixed asset in the amount not to exceed $6,365. This is for a enterprise survivable server for the phone systems for the adult Aging Adult Services Department. It is simply coincidence. I want to make sure the record's clear. It's simply coincidence that today, because of the lack of this server, they have no phone service. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I've confirmed that with the director. But this is an important piece of equipment. It is designed to avoid exactly what we're experiencing today and to allow for uninterrupted phone service when the networks fail. So it's recommended that your board approve this mid-year fixed asset in the amount not to exceed $6,365.
Thank you, Mr. Frapwell. I'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to make comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for comments and consideration.
Move approval.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
Great. That brings us to item number 32. Proposed agreements with Barnum Auction and Ken Porter Auctions for vehicle and heavy equipment auctioneer services from April 12th, 2016 to March 31st, 2019. Mr. Frapwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The item before you, as outlined in the staff report, is seeking your board's approval to enter into two agreements with two different firms for the auction services related to the disposition of used equipment, rolling stock, both light equipment as well as heavy equipment for the county. The process in which was engaged by county staff was to issue an RFP. The RFP was reviewed by an RFP committee that was headed up by one of our trained certified RFP facilitators, this time from the Department of Public Works. The Department of Public Works was represented on the RFP committee, as was General Services and the Probation Department. The committee reviewed a number of criteria outlined also in your staff report and to identify the firm or firms best suited to provide those services to the county and to maximize the recovery of the value of the assets being sold. It's important, the value of the assets being sold is a direct offset to the acquisition of replacement equipment, so it's vital for the county's interest and the taxpayers' interest that we maximize the return back to the county. So I'm happy to go through more details. I know this was pulled off by Mr. Pennington, and perhaps your board would like to hear his concerns.
Good idea, Mr. Frapwell. I'll open up for public comment, and if anyone has any thoughts, now's the time to share. Please state your name and speak your piece.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Austin Pennington. I own WSM Auctions with my father, Jim Pennington. We are a local auction house here in Bakersfield. We've been in business for about 5.5 years now. We are located in the southwest corner of the Auto Mall, right up against the 99, just north of Panama Lane. Just wanted to speak for a few minutes on the the evaluation and the fact that the county contract for the fleet liquidation was awarded half to Ken Porter Auctions, which is an LA auction, and the other half was awarded to Bar None Auctions, which is an auction in Sacramento. For the past 3 years, WSM has split the county contract with Ken Porter Auctions, and then we submitted our RFP, and we were denied to continue for the next 3 years. Just to speak on their 7 bases of award, I'll touch on each one very briefly. In the first point, the county states under the topic of proposers' understanding of the RFP requirements and the end result. This was a pretty good review for us. The county stated that the vendor exhibits good understanding in the scope of services and is aware of the county needs. The proposal included requirements, contained inventory report and itemized report of sales, and it is reflective of the county needs. That seems pretty positive to us. Move along to the second one, which is titled Proposed Approach to Tasks to Fulfill the Scope of Service. Now in this, our evaluation briefly shows that that WSM Auctions meets the 8.5% benchmark, which is 8.5% of the original purchase price when we dispose and liquidate of these vehicles. It also states that vendor has a secure location for auction vehicles, and we hold auctions the second Friday of every month. The bottom of that states that the buyer is directed to complete registration paperwork, thereby creating a liability to the county. And I know this was a big point for them. Obviously, the county does not want any liability after their fleet units are sold and driven off. However, we, as WSM Auctions, do an online release liability of the units the same day of the sale. So their liability is completely diminished from the county. One of their other auctions that was awarded the contracts, they provide the full registration process of the vehicles, the whole report of sale. In our rebuttal to the county, we offered to provide that full service just to give them peace of mind, even though that's not completely necessary because we do perform the online release of liabilities with the vehicles. They also said that we have a pretty general or standard approach to marketing and advertising our sales. Now, we believe that the best marketing and advertising we can have is our location. We have 7 acres of paved property right up against Highway 99. Hundreds of thousands of vehicles go by that every single day. And we would put the county inventory up against the fence so everybody could see as they drove by. On top of that, we also advertise in the Californian and camera ads, and we also send out email blasts to our auction platform, which is Auction Pipeline, which is consisted of 30,000 public and dealer users of the platform, meaning anybody from anywhere can bid on these vehicles. If we move on to Section 3, the proposer's experience in similar projects, the county states that the vendor has not been in business for a substantial period, but staff have the experience required for the services. The vendor holds similar accounts, but most are smaller than the county. Now, it's not that big a deal that their perspective was that we have most of our accounts are smaller than the county, and whether it's beneficial to mention or not, if that was any part of the decision, we have sold hundreds of vehicles for Element Fleet, which is formerly GE Capital. They're the 3rd largest fleet management company in Canada, and the largest fleet management company in Canada, and the 3rd largest in the U.S. They have 1 million vehicles in fleet and over $25 billion of total assets. We sold over 200 units for them last year, and one of their clients that they lease their vehicles to is Chevron Oil, who is a big, as you all know, proponent of local service and keeping everything local. In fact, Chevron would not even continue to do business with Element or GE Capital if the units had continued to go down south where they were going before we came to town and started our auction. We also sell for ARI, which is the world's largest fleet management company, rated in the Fortune 500's top 100 companies, sold over 250 units for them in 2015. And then just a couple local companies, over 650 vehicles for Motor City, Buick, GMC, and Lexus last year, 400 and change for Jim Burke Ford, Ford, 400 and change for Bakersfield Hyundai, and also a little over 440 units for local credit unions. So clearly we can and we do service companies much larger than the county. In the fourth part of the evaluation, which is mentioning fees, commissions, premiums applied to the buyers and/or county, the county states that all costs seem to be fair and practical and within the industry standards. WSM charges the county 2% commission, $50 smog fee, $150 processing fee, and a $50 detail fee. They state that we are the only auction to charge the smog, processing, and detail fee, and the only reason we charge the $150 processing fee to the county is because when we originally set up the contract 3 years ago, the county stated they wanted to incur that charge rather than passing along to the buyer. However, if it would help to get the contract back, we will waive the $150 fee. If you look at the average vehicle sale price over the past 3 years, $3,870 between us and Ken Porter. WSM Auctions nets the county $3,537 per unit. Ken Porter nets the county $3,688, which is about $150 difference, which in and of itself is an astronomically low number to send all of Kern County's inventory out of town to be sold, where we're losing on sales tax that can be put towards our community. Even though it's not the full 7.5%, which I know is one of their main arguments, any part of that sales tax should stay here in Kern County. And also, when we provide these public auctions, we provide reliable transportation to all of the buyers who come and attend our sale in order for them to get through their jobs and take care of their family. Section 5, qualifications of proposers' staff for the project. The county states the vendor has been open for 5+ years, but prior auction experience is included, and the resumes were not very detailed. So just a clarification on a couple key people in the auction's resume. My father, Jim Pennington, owned a cattle auction on 99 and 46 Western Stockman's Market for 15 years, sold that in the early 2000s. He's also the 2000 International Livestock Auctioneer Champion. I am the 2014 United States Bid Calling Champion. All our family has ever done is run auctions. Our title clerk has 15 years experience, and our office manager has 20 years of experience. The sixth point that it was in the evaluation was the transition plan, which was supposed to begin April 1st. The county states that WSM utilizes subcontractors and has no company-owned equipment. Now, in response to that, no, we don't own our own hauling equipment. We are a one-lane local auction. To buy hauling equipment would not be feasible for us. So we're assuming that they're asking about what our charges would be to haul equipment for them to the auction. So just to clarify that, we use Jim's Towing, and they charge $200 an hour. So that is what it is. That charge would be passed along to the county. Now, Bar None's proposal included a $750 per load for equipment to transport up north and $175 per car. We pick up the cars for free as long as they run. We drive them over. If they don't run, it's a $45 tow charge that is not, we don't sack any money on top of what the tow companies charge us. It's our understanding that Ken Porter would get all of the equipment, but to predetermine where the inventory goes seems a little odd, since we were told that the selection process of the inventory sold and split between us and Ken Porter over the last 3 years was completely random. And that was only brought about when we asked them if their figures were a little higher, because we would get all of the non-running vehicles since we were local, and it's much easier to transport those on a flatbed than to load on a 10-car hauler and send down south. So we were told that was completely random. The seventh evaluation point here is references. The county simply states that 2 reference letters were submitted, other references contact, and returned responses with positive reviews of the vendor. So overall, in closing, all we've heard today is keep it local, keep it local, keep it local, and make money for Kern County. If we cut out the $150 processing fee, we are netting them essentially the same amount of money that 2 out-of-town auctions will net them, and we need to keep this local to where all of our families live and go to church and go to school and whether or not it's the whole 7.5% of sales taxes stays in our county, any little bit helps. So with that, we just need to keep it local, and I ask for your strong suggestion for them to review this and switch that contract back to how it was, half and half between us and Ken Porter Auctions.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'll close the public hearing and ask Mr. Frappwell to provide comment before we come to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The RFP Review Committee did go through the 5 proposals that were received by the county and ranked each of the proposals based on those 7 criteria outlined. The cumulative scores were then compared. WSM was provided a local vendor preference of 5%, and that was added to their score. The end of the day, the scores, the 2 firms that had the best scores and best prepared, I think, to provide the service of the county were the ones being recommended, bar none, and Ken Porter. Ken Porter has some unique abilities and expertise with respect to the disposition of heavy equipment, especially that which is no longer going to be able to be operated in the state. And one of the things they provide us is auction or availability and access to out-of-state purchasers. We can provide. Let me see if, Madam Chairman, can you? Before you is what we're estimating the average sales price return on investment, return for the vehicles stated by Mr. Pennington is in fact correct when you merge both the light vehicles and the heavy vehicles. We thought it is most appropriate, however, to deal only with the light vehicles. Those are the vehicles that would be sold at the local auction market. This is the last 12 months worth of history of what we've actually received net proceeds, net of all fees, on all equivalent vehicles. So this is an apples-to-apples comparison between the 2 providers that we currently have. You can see from the numbers ahead of you on the screen that the average net proceeds per vehicle from Ken Porter was $1,654.36, and from WSM, $1,231.43. If you then extrapolate that, moving forward, assuming 150 vehicles a year, over the next 3 years, the amount that we might project is $554,000 versus $744,000. So you can see $190,000 over the 3-year term. This is assuming we have 150 vehicles per year over the next 3 years. I think that's a conservative assumption. So the additional proceeds per vehicle is $423. If you change to the fees. Can you switch? Are we on freeze?
Yeah, you're on freeze.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. This is a comparison, and this is a comparison of fees being included in the RFP submittals by the 3 companies in question today. You can see that under bar none, the fees paid by the county per vehicle, $175. In total from Ken Porter, $181. In total from WSM, $332.40. It's important, I think, to note this, and I think let me just segue quickly. As part of the RFP process for the county, when the RFP committee makes a recommendation to the, in this case, General Services, with respect to who to select, the firms that aren't being recommended are provided a 10-day option to provide additional information to the RFP committee, which may or may not have been included in their original submittal. Importantly, the requirement is, or what is allowed is additional information, clarifying information, as opposed to firms are not permitted to change their bid. This is important for the sanctity of the RFP process, and I'm sure council could speak to this as well. But it's important that we cannot consider changes if they've made changes to their original submittal. So we can take clarifying information, we can take some additional information, and certainly we afforded WSM the opportunity to do that, and they took advantage of that, and we appreciated the additional information and reviewed that in light of the RFP committee's recommendation. Our recommendation to your board did not deviate at the end of the day. So, but here is total fees, and so if you look at total fees paid, anticipated to be paid by the county under the three firms, it ranges from $78,750 to $149,580. And so based on these, based on fees paid, and based on what we anticipate net proceeds coming back to the local taxpayers, it is our recommendation that your board award the contracts to Bar None and Ken Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Fatwell. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. I have a question about the full screen, the fees page.
Yes.
Under Bar None, it looks like they have a transport fee and that's it. I don't understand. Did they just transport them?
Under the Bar None proposal and their business model, the buyer pays the other fees to the DMV. And so Bar None charges a fixed dollar amount to the county.
So that should be included in, if we take that fixed dollar amount and divide it by, in this case, 150, that's our example, what would that be?
I'm sorry?
So they're charging us a flat fee.
Right.
And they're charging us $175 a vehicle to transport. Is that right?
They're charging us $175 flat.
Per car?
Per vehicle.
To move it, sell it, you name it.
Absolutely. Total fees.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments from the board?
I don't like it.
What was the, while we're waiting for some for the further discussion, what was the local credit you gave to an RFP who had a local 5%? Is that what you said?
Local vendors under an RFP are provided a 5% local vendor preference.
That's standard through the entire county across the board on all our RFPs. Is that correct?
On all RFPs for services.
Okay.
What was the weighting?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to ask council if she would like to comment on the RFP process. Mr. Frapwell indicated what we do allow as far as clarification of information versus changing the bid. I mean, I think that's what was suggested.
I'd be happy to. Supervisor Scrivener through the chair. Mr. Frapwell spoke correctly, and just like a lawyer, I might say, you're not allowed to change the bid, but you can certainly do something to clarify it a little bit. Where the line is between changing it actually and clarifying it, that's what lawsuits can be made of. But in any event, you can't change a bid once it's submitted in, but you can certainly clarify it. Your board has the option to either proceed as requested by staff, or if you wish to, you could direct staff to go through this process again.
Thank you.
And if I may, and in the absence of any motion, then the request by staff would fail and no action would be taken.
I'll just give it another seconds. Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What happens if we take no action? What would be the practical effect?
Supervisor Couch, the chair, the existing agreements we have for auction services have expired at the end of March, and so we would not have any vendors to used to auction the county services. Supervisor Couch, if I might, also, I think you started to ask what the total ranking was between the three firms from a scoring standpoint, and if you'd like that, I'm happy to provide that.
I was interested in how many different categories were there that you scored them on?
Supervisor Couch, the chair, there were 7 criteria.
Were they all weighted equally? Or were some weighted more than others?
Supervisor Couch, they were weighted based on their importance to the overall ability to provide service to the county. So they did vary.
Is their importance listed in the board letter in order of how they're listed? Number 1 being proposed understanding of the RFP requirements and end result. They're not numbered, but that's the first one.
Supervisor Couch, the chair, let me just quickly go through those, and the short answer is no, but I can tell you what those were. So under the first criteria, which is the proposer's understanding of the RFP requirements and end result, was provided a 15% weight. Number 2, the proposer's proposed approach to task to fill scope of services was weighted 15%. Number 3, proposer's experience in similar projects, 10%. Number 4, the fees, commissions, premiums applied to buyers and/or the county, 20%. Qualifications of proposer's staff for project, 15%. Transition plan, 15%, and references, 10%. So of the 3 top-ranking firms, sorry, I've lost my place. Let me find that again. Of the 3 top-ranking firms, bar none ranked the highest overall of 71.3 points, or 89.08%, followed by Ken Porter Auctions with 69.7 points, 87.15%, and WSM Auctions, after being provided the local vendor preference, 63.7 points, or 79.7%.
And it's always easy for us to Monday morning quarterback these things on you, but if you are an incumbent, and we had two incumbents of the 5 that responded, how would an incumbent, I guess, how would you, as an incumbent, get any points for a transition plan? Because if you remain, you either get 15, but I guess you get 100, you score the highest as you can, or you would score the lowest possible, because there would be no transition plan. Or am I not understanding, what are we transitioning to?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, they scored, the WSM scored very high on that, in that category. So average between the proposers, 9.2 points out of 10. So
I guess let me ask it another way. What were we transitioning? Were they told we're going to send all of our heavy equipment one way and all of our light vehicles, or whatever the right terminology is, to another direction? Because I don't know how would you even respond to a transition plan if they weren't told that, if they were just going to remain a vendor, potentially remain a vendor?
Supervisor Couch, the chair, they're currently under the contracts that just expired. They received, received more than 50%. The computer randomizes the distribution of the vehicles, takes the heavy equipment, sent that Ken Porter, for all the light vehicles were randomized between the 2 vendors. WSM actually received more than 50% of those vendors, of those vehicles. And so the transition plan, in this case, there really isn't a negative impact. We were confident that WSM could continue to do the service. That wasn't a concern of the committee.
But how would they even respond? I guess it's a difficult question to answer. I understand that, but because I don't understand how they would respond, and I don't even understand how you could score it.
Right, Supervisor Couch, the question, when we create the questions and create the matrix, is done without the knowledge of who might receive the business. So clearly, an incumbent has very little to prove that they're able to transition because, of course, they can continue doing the service. That it is a relevant question, however, in the RFP and one that the committee reviews, because for a non-incumbent, there is a transition that's required, and it's important that the committee then evaluate that non-incumbent's plan on how they would pick up the county's business. In this case, both the two current vendors essentially received, full score on that transition plan.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fropwell, if you had known prior to the closing of the bidding period the change that WSM suggested that they were willing to make, would that have changed the outcome?
Supervisor Maggott, through the chair, the additional information, the clarification that we received WSM did, in our opinion, probably would have helped their overall score. It would not have pushed it, however, above the second bid. And then the change, we can't, as council alluded to as well, we couldn't take into consideration their offer to eliminate, for instance, the $100 fee. And that would be changing materially their bid. So we weren't able to.
Had they done that, had they submitted their original proposal with that in there, would that have changed the results?
Supervisor, I think that's difficult for me to give you an answer here. I think that certainly fees were one of the criteria that had enough weight that it could have, frankly. It could have. Had their bid that was received and considered by the RFP committee not included the $150 fee, it may have changed the outcome, yes.
Thank you for that candor about that. My problem with this is that in spite of the offer that WSM has made, it's after the fact. I used to bid for professional services, and you cannot, the process has no integrity if we don't follow the parameters of the process and the deadlines of the process. And it's unfortunate that the taxpayers aren't going to get maybe a little bit of savings that they might have had otherwise, but it's more unfortunate that this vendor didn't put that in their original bid. And if we allow every submitter who loses to modify their bid to be better than the prevailing party, our process is of no validity. So I would recommend that we adopt staff's recommendation and move forward. I would motion that we adopt staff's recommendation and move forward.
We have a motion. Looking for a second.
I agree, Supervisor Maggott, and that's really what is at stake here is the integrity of our process. And it is unfortunate. Of course, we'd all like to give a bid to a local company, but you can't allow people to change their bids, or otherwise you just throw the whole process out the window.
We have a bid and a second, and it's obvious to this. We have a motion and a second, and it's obvious to this board and anybody watching this process that we are reluctant to cast this vote, but please cast your vote.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 35. Proposed new classification addition of 2 health plan utilization specialists, 1 and 2 positions at a salary range 52.6 to 55.1, $2,997 to $41.44 monthly in budget unit 1310.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The item before you is a request to create 2 new job classifications in a flexible class series titled Health Plan Utilization Specialist 1 and 2, and to authorize the addition of 2 of these flexible positions to the Human Resources Budget Unit 1310. In 2013, when the Kern Legacy Health Plan was created by your board, Kern medical staff, under the supervision and brilliant leadership of Vice President J.C. Cooper, administered the plan for the county. Their expertise and knowledge has allowed Kern Legacy to grow and thrive as a new viable plan option for employees and their families looking for a lower cost health care. As you're aware, Kern Medical is transitioning to the hospital authority in a little less than 3 months. As part of the transition of the Kern Medical to the Kern County Hospital Authority, the Human Resources Division has taken on additional oversight of the Kern Legacy Health Plan this past year. Human Resources staff now oversees the vendor contracts for the plan as well as directly administers Kern Legacy member services and provider relations functions. The county's independently owned provider network, the Kern Healthcare Network, is also now administered by the Human Resources Department. As you know, Ms. Cooper, who has been a steward of this plan since the beginning, has also decided to depart the county for greener pastures of the state. And it
There are no greener pastures.
and it has been agreed between the County Human Resources Division and Kern Medical that the best option for the plan going forward is to transition the utilization management administration function to the Human Resources Division as well. In an effort to continue to grow the Kern Legacy Health Plan and provide extra attention and a personal touch that the members of the plan have grown to expect, the division requires positions particularly suited to addressing member issues and navigating the utilization management process, as well as facilitating the care with Kern Medical and coordinating strategic efforts with member services and provider relations functions. The additional fiscal impact of this request will be offset by reductions in administrative fees from the change in utilization management clinical review from Kern Medical to Clinics Healthcare, as well as other recent changes to the point of service plan and Kern Legacy Network Administration vendor agreements. The additional staff will provide greater oversight and further enhance quality and service for the Kern Legacy Health Plan and its members. As membership continues to increase in Kern Legacy, fixed staffing costs will remain static as opposed to the current per employee per month vendor fees for those services, and the county will have greater control and flexibility in administration of this important partner project, which benefits both the county, Kern Medical, and the employees and retirees of both agencies. Therefore, it is recommended that your board approve the creation and addition of 2 Flex Class Series Health Plan Utilization Specialist 1, item number 0477 at a salary range of 52.6, and Health Plan Utilization Specialist 2, item number 0476 at a salary range of 55.1, and refer the matter to the Human Resources Division for development of the job specifications and to amend the department positions and salary schedule. Be happy to answer any questions your board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Open for public comment. Close it for public comment. Bring it back to the board for thoughts and considerations.
Move approval.
Supervisor Maggart.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. I'd like to have a report back on, since we have transitioned to, made all these changes in our plan administration and all of that, are we or are we not more efficient than we were? I'd like real numbers to put side by side of, are all these changes turning out to be a net benefit to our bottom line? But I second the motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. Please cast your votes.
Please reconfirm your vote. Thank you. The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. That brings us to a close. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, April 19th, 2016 at 11 a.m. in Havilah at the courthouse to commemorate Kern County's 150th anniversary.
So moved.
So moved, so done.